Hello, everybody, and welcome to Indie Bazaar Throwback, where we take a look at video games that help shape the current indie scene or games that I think were unfairly overlooked in their time. And today we have something that is sort of both. This is Yume Nikki, developed by Kikiyama and self released in 2004. I'm just gonna get a start here, and I'll start rambling a little bit if you don't mind. It is quite early, funnily enough, where I am. So I'll be straightforward with you. This is one of my favorite games of all time. Um, Yume Nikki is a game that I kind of don't think always gets its due in terms of uh, precedent set for other games and just kind of the extremely long. I'm actually going to turn this down. Hold on. Music in this game is lovely, but it is quite loud. There we go. Anyway, just in terms of having a really long legacy with a lot of games that have influence, either obvious or not, coming from this. So let me think here. We're gonna head over. Is it this one down here? Anyway, point being, in my mind, Yume Nikki is kind of one of the first, like, walking simulator games. I know Dear Esther usually gets credit as the first one of those, and I don't 100% disagree, but this game was impactful to a lot of people who, in my experience, usually didn't play a ton of video games, or if they did, it wasn't this sort of thing. It wasn't this kind of weird one-person indie project from Japan that ended up somehow becoming a fairly big internet phenomenon. Speaking personally, when I was this age, my video game experience was mostly limited to the Halo franchise and, like, Civilization 3. Neither of those games are bad by any means, but obviously they are a fairly small set of what's out there. We found the bathroom. Isn't that delightful? Anyway, you might be hearing me praise this and be looking at it and just being like, kind of like, I don't get it. It looks like you're just walking around. To which I would say, you are correct. That is what Yume Nikki is. It is just walking around. If you're not familiar with the term walking simulator, kind of started as a derogatory way to describe games like Dear Esther and Gone Home, wherein there was not a lot, or maybe even any at all, traditional gameplay, and the game was more focused on either setting a mood or telling a story. And this is sort of the former category, even though, like I said, it predates those games by quite a bit. So there is an end goal in Yume Nikki. If we pop open our menu here, we'll see we have this little thing called effects, and we have the instructions and then a bunch of blank spots. There are 24 of these in the game. They're basically items that let us transform into other things, or they give us something to use. And when you have all of those, there is a little bit you have to do back in the overworld area that we were just at, and the game is over. I will not spoil the ending of the game, even though it is arguably the most famous part of the game, just in case, anybody's out here watching for the first time. I'm trying to find something in particular, actually, believe it or not. I'm not just wandering around aimlessly. There is a bicycle around here somewhere, and if we can find it, that would make my life a good deal easier. But if we can't find it, then oh well. I want to say it's at the end of this weird little trail here. This entire area actually forms like a picture of some kind of face, which is an element that would recur in the many fan games that this particular property inspired. And if you just got taken aback a little bit by use of the term fan games, then yeah, this was kind of the one before your Undertale and your Off and all of that. this was kind of the one that attracted that sort of fan base. Here's our bike. You see we get the little bicycle pop-up, and we go in here, and now we're a little bit faster. Isn't that nice? Anyway, so yeah, that was the sort of community that Yume Nikki had around it for years, and still honestly does. Oh, I forgot this was here. Let's go in here. I don't remember what this is all about. God, the soundtrack in this game is gorgeous. Okay. So here we see, like a pretty typical Yume Nikki NPC. We can interact with them, but they don't talk. They just kind of... They make a noise. Their sprite gets a little bit messed up. But there's a bunch of these guys spread throughout this, like, warehouse, mall area. Got another one down here. His head goes all wobbly. And if you're looking for the appeal of Yume Nikki, this is it. This is... You roll around, you look at the sights, you listen to the sounds, you interact with all these weird people, see what they do. Like I said, there is basically no dialogue in the game at all. Yeah, I'm happy to see you two again, buddy. Stop bleeding on the floor. Very weird game, if you haven't noticed. So, to elaborate on the basic premise a little bit, 6.5 minutes into this recording, we are Madatsuki, who is this little girl riding our bike here. Her name means windowsill in Japanese, or window pane in Japanese, so make of that what you will. We got Mr. E over here. And I think this lady lets us change the color of our menu, yeah. There's one that I liked a lot. Where... No, that's not it. I guess we could stick with the red if we really wanted to. Maybe it is just these two. I thought there were more than that. Oh well. Anyway. We got this fellow over here. He doesn't do anything right now. We got this guy down here who plays some lovely chip tunes while we're near him. And we get the flute effect. Hold on now. This is embarrassing, but I actually don't remember how to make this work. Is it the... No, it's not the 9 button. Well, that's embarrassing. Hold on a second. Yeah, actually, you know what, while I'm up, why don't I explain how this works? So, you actually can't leave this apartment. You go up to the door, she just shakes her head. The desk is how you save, and all of the gameplay takes place past the bed here. So you go to sleep, there's a countdown, she falls asleep, she dreams. Again, maybe I should have explained that a little bit earlier on. And the only real complaint I have about Yume Nikki actually is that the control mapping is a little weird. So you press 9, like I did back there, to return awake if you're stuck somewhere and you want to get out. You press the 1 key to use the active effect of your item, if there is one. She plays a little tune on her flute here if you tap the 1 key a few times. I think with the bicycle, like a bell sound plays, yeah. Let's go to the forest. So, that's Yume Nikki in a nutshell. Is you go around, you interact with all these weird things, sometimes you get cursed, and you have like a weird floating, vomiting blob ghost above your head. That's pretty normal for this game, you know. You might be wondering, possibly, why this game resonated with so many people. And I think the answer is that it didn't really demand anything of you other than a little bit of patience. A lot of the games from this era, a lot of indie games from this era, were things like, I want to be the guy, or that sort of thing. Cave Story is another one, where you were really, really tasked with... You had to be good at video games, basically. And Yume Nikki, you could just kind of slow down and enjoy at your own pace and look around and see what all this bizarre stuff was about. And one of the points of appeal that the game has, I don't think it gets brought up often enough, is that it's kind of a tabula rasa in terms of what you make of it. There's basically no dialogue other than the bird lady back there telling you that your menu color has changed, and the little pop-ups when you get a new item. It's the protagonist is entirely mute. She never says a thing throughout the game, and there is an ending, but it's very strange and ambiguous in its own way. So you've got this girl who locks herself in her room, who dreams constantly, and you're left to kind of draw your own conclusions about the world that the game takes place in, what it means, if anything, just that kind of thing. And I think that was very appealing to, my young self, certainly, who spent far longer than is probably healthy thinking of reasons why Madatsuki might lock herself in her room and do all this. There were just a ton of crazy theories, and the thing is that none of them really were that crazy because the game gave you so little to work with by design. And the interesting thing to me is that seems to be intentional. I have heard the idea occasionally floated that Kikiyama had planned to go back and add more of a story, but I've never really seen any evidence for that. So, as far as I can tell, this is the game as it was meant to be played, and if it's not as it was meant to be played, then I guess it's just one of those instances where, happy accidents make the best art sometimes. Oh geez, we wound up back at the beginning. There is an item in here, but I'm gonna spoil it for you. This video was mostly me rambling about why I love the game so much. This game is free. As far as I'm aware, there's not even a way to pay for it if you wanted to. I will link the download link in the description and the English patch, assuming I can find them both, but I don't think it'll be too difficult to. One second, I need to take a sip of my water here. I've been yapping my gob so much, I've dried out my throat. So yeah, it's very elemental, isn't it? Like, you got very, very straightforward pixel art, all these weird backgrounds, these hand-drawn sprites of stuff like these weird blob ghosts. Yeah, I'm actually gonna go show off a little bit more of the game. See if we can't duck into each one of the doors, at least briefly. Maybe not all of them, but most of them, And music that is very simple, but honestly kind of haunting. Like, I'll just shut up for a minute so you can hear the theme out here. It's just this very basic, like, synth wash. I don't know quite what software was used to make it, but it's very evocative, though, despite that, I think. And that's kind of the thing with Yume Nikki in general, is even though there's not a lot of specifics given, I think it's kind of inspiring in that way, almost. Because you look at this, and I think that this might have been the real key to the game's success. You look at this and you say, with enough practice, I could probably do this. And a lot of people did. There was... the list of Yume Nikki fan games is a mile long. You got Yume Nikki 2, which was developed by a bunch of people. You have Dot Flow, you have Yume Nishi, you've got LCD DEM, you got, there were a ton more. The Other Line, Answered Prayers, just tons and tons and tons of games that were explicitly, I am doing the Yume Nikki thing, but in my own way. And I think that was another key part of the appeal here, alongside the whole crazy theories thing. In addition to the ones that I named, you got games that kind of took an inspiration from the sort of feel of the game, but then took it in their own direction. stuff like Off and Middens. I might even put Undertale in there. I don't know 100%, but I kind of have an inkling. And as far as I'm aware, Yume Nikki is kind of emerged wholesale. Like, there's a couple points of influence you can pin down. You got, like, Earthbound for the Super Nintendo. You have the LSD Dream emulator for the PlayStation 1. But there's just not very many games like this from this time period. And it's interesting to me that it resonated with so many people. Because, I think back to where I was in a mental state. I'm not going to try to make this video 100% about myself, but where I was mentally when I first came upon this weird little game. For one thing, it was one of the few things that would run on my shitty netbook, so that was a big plus. But, like, just as an example, Yume Nikki theories were the first time I'd ever heard the term transgender. There was this whole thing about, oh, Madatsuki is a trans woman and she's depressed because yada yada, body dysphoria, and she doesn't want to leave the house, so she stays in and she sleeps all day, and this game's like a metaphor for how she feels. And that could be true. That could be 100% true, or it could be completely wrong. Like, we don't really know. The developer behind this game, Kikiyama, just one person, very mysterious individual. Now, this one's actually that's my, probably my least favorite world in the game, because there's just not very much in there. We'll go to this one instead. Like, we don't really know a ton about them even still. I mean, a few years ago, somebody got confirmation that, I think it was somebody on the Oboa-chan board, which was an image board devoted solely to this game and fan games inspired by it. There was that earthquake in Japan a few years ago, and they got confirmation that they were still okay. And then a few years back, there was the official, semi-official Yume Nikki manga by the Alien 9 guy. Nobody is 100% sure what's up with that, even still. Oh, hey, this guy gives us an item, I think. Yeah, we get the neon effect from that fellow here. This changes the tint on the black surfaces. Interesting stuff, right? But, so, again, like, the game really is a blank slate. Yume Nikki is what you make of it. And I don't know about you guys, but I can still turn this thing on for, I mean, heck, this video has been going for about 18 minutes now, and just wander around for a little bit and appreciate all the weird little characters and the backgrounds and the like, what is this thing, you know? Like, just this kind of thing is what brings me back to Yume Nikki and many of its fan games time and time again. People sometimes talk about, like, and here, I'm gonna warp us back to the bedroom, because I'm about done with this video, I think. I don't want to make this too long. People sometimes talk about, like, Desert Island albums, like, if there was Stranded on Desert Island, but they had a record player which could play any 10 albums infinitely. I think Yume Nikki would be on my list of Desert Island games. And the only reason it wouldn't be is if I took Yume Nikki 2 instead, which is just this, but more of it. So, again, like, there's a lot to unpack here, and I'm sort of self-conscious of the fact that it's hard to do this game justice just by looking at it. You really have to. And if you're interested in what you've seen here at all, I strongly encourage you to do this, because, again, the game is free. Has been for damn near 15 years. You have to kind of turn it on, tune out all other distractions, and just kind of let it envelop you for a little bit. And I know that sounds super high-minded and pretentious, and I guess maybe it is a little bit, but it really is, more than many other games, the kind of thing you can really get immersed in if you let yourself. And to me, I found this game in maybe, I'm thinking like 2008, 2009, and to me, this was just, as a pretty depressed, like, high school kid, this was, like, the most important game I'd ever played. Because it was something that, in a very strange, abstract kind of way, sort of spoke to my experience. And I know that's true of a lot of people even still. I mean, again, like, I'm wary of making this too long and making it just person rambles about video game, but that is kind of what the purpose of this sub-series is. It really is something you have to try for yourself, and I think if you're of a certain age or even in a certain time in your life, this is one of those rare pieces of media that can be life-changing if the circumstances are right. Other people will just play it and see like a pretty good walking simulator, and that's fine too. I think that's certainly fair. But for me and for a lot of people, this was a game that kind of defined its era. And you really don't see too many like this anymore. I mean, there is still, the odd Yume Nikki fan game that comes out. And Yume Nikki 2 has been in development for almost 10 years now. It's still being updated. But even games that do come out that use this sort of template, you have stuff like Anodyne, which is sort of this plus Zelda. And again, you've got like the entire legacy of the walking sim genre, which is sort of this but in first person. I might also give it credit for kickstarting the whole RPG Maker horror thing, for better or worse, alongside Ebe. Again, I'm kind of rambling now, but this, more so than almost any other game I have ever played or will ever play on this channel, I implore you to give it a shot. Maybe look up where the bike is, just to make things a little quicker if you're the sort that kind of wants that kind of experience. And just give it half an hour of your time. I promise you that if you give it a chance, this is the kind of thing that will be like life-defining if like I said, if you're in the right place. And I'm now repeating myself, and I'm aware of that fact. So I'm probably going to sign off here. Again, the download link and the English paths provided I can find them will be in the description of the video. Normally, I like to link to the developer's Twitter account, but as far as I'm aware, Kikiyama doesn't have one. Like I said, they're a very reclusive individual. So yeah, that's about it for this first episode of Indie Bazaar Throwback. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe. Do new Indie Bazaars once a week. New Indie Bazaar Throwback. I haven't quite settled on a schedule for those. I'll probably push out an update video when I do. And currently, completely unrelated to this in terms of genre entirely, Cuphead every Saturday and Sunday until I finish that game. So, for now, I bid you adieu, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Indie Bazaar Throwbacks. Goodbye!